Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Weather on the Go, all your weather coverage. My name's Hunter, and in this forecast, we're going to be talking about a record-breaking cold pattern potentially as we go into late January, and that could bring more snow to the forecast as well. So if you are here, make sure to subscribe to the channel and check back often for updates. Share this video on social media, like the video by giving it a thumbs up. I definitely appreciate it as well. Let's look here at our precipitation as we go into the evening. We got some snowfall here across the Great Lakes. This is going to continue to add up to a couple of inches across this region. We got some rain down here near the Gulf Coast in Louisiana, southern Mississippi, and Alabama here this evening. That will spread further east here into Georgia, parts of northern Florida as we go into overnight tonight. So expect some rainy conditions after midnight there into places like Panama City, Tallahassee, and even up there again into southwestern Georgia. The snow to continue further north. And here's the snowfall accumulation. This is on top of what we've already seen so far this morning into the afternoon. We could see some decent snows back here, Montana down here into Wyoming, and then around the Great Lakes. Let's look out west. First here in central Montana down into northern Wyoming, we could be seeing upwards of 8 to 12, perhaps even 14 inches worth of snow here, and these are in the higher elevations, very localized out across this way. Looking at the Great Lakes, mostly up here into the upper peninsula of Michigan, northwestern lower Michigan here is where we could be seeing an additional 1 to 3 inches worth of snow. Most of the snow is actually happening across the international border into Canada, into Ontario and Quebec here. That's where the heaviest of the snow will be, north of Lake Superior. Now looking at travel, how it could be impacted as we go through Monday, this could limit travel a little bit across the upper peninsula of Michigan, parts of the northwest lower peninsula of Michigan there, keeping an eye on that, and also some travel restrictions from central Montana down into northern Wyoming. That will be more minor again and more localized as well in those higher elevations going through that time frame. Further to the south, we got warmer air, and that will be transitioning that snow over to all rain across the Gulf Coast. So New Orleans, southern Mississippi, South Alabama, northwest Florida there. That could extend over into southwest Georgia too. We could be seeing rainfall amounts upwards to an inch down here, and some localized flooding at times, especially in low-lying areas, will be possible. Now let's look at our temperatures as we head through the new week. The coldest of the air will be focused in the eastern United States. It'll still be chilly at times in the west, but not nearly as chilly or cold as we are seeing in the east. And let's look at those morning lows. So waking up tomorrow morning, Monday morning, heading off to work or school, really have to bundle up. Look at the freezing line all the way down here towards the Gulf Coast states. We have negatives for lows up here, negative 10, negative 15s up here into the Dakotas, northern Minnesota Monday morning. And we're going to stay below zero for high temperatures Monday afternoon across North Dakota and into northern Minnesota. Teens and 20s across the majority of the Midwest and the Ohio Valley there Monday. The coldest morning of the week looks to be Wednesday morning. Look at that. We could see widespread 0 to even below 0 temperatures. And this isn't even factoring in the wind chill across the Ohio Valley up there into the Midwest, the upper Midwest, and that freezing line going all the way to the immediate Gulf Coast Wednesday morning. Here Wednesday afternoon, highs into the teens and 20s across the Midwest, Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley into the Northeast. A little bit of return flow across the plains could get us back into the upper 30s to near 40 in the places like the Dakotas, Nebraska, Kansas, all the way down here into Oklahoma and Texas. Maybe a couple areas in central Texas getting into the low 60s. Then as we go into Friday morning, we're not as Arctic cold as what we were seeing earlier on in the week. Certainly not as cold as Monday or Wednesday morning, but definitely still chilly out there. Temperatures starting off in the teens and 20s, so a higher springboard of which to start. And our temperatures Friday afternoon will be into the 30s across the majority of the Midwest into the Ohio Valley, and that will definitely feel like a thaw compared to earlier on here in the week. Now, even though we have cold air, it doesn't always mean we're going to see snow, but we do have a chance of snow, this time further north into southern Canada. A lot of the eastern U.S. is going to see cold, dry air through that Friday, January 17th time frame. And we're going to walk you through the pattern here. So looking tomorrow, Monday, January 13th, we got a little bit of a low pressure up here into Ontario. That could aggravate some of the lakes and give us some lake effect snow. Also some light snow flurries and snow showers continuing across western Dakotas, northeast Wyoming, and eastern Montana. Otherwise, that moisture will be all rain down here in the southeast coast for Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina on Monday. Going into Tuesday, we got some lighter snow again around the Great Lakes in southeastern Canada. The majority of the United States will be dry dry, and that will carry over into Wednesday as well, outside of a snow shower up here in far northern United States, or of some lighter rain down here in the Rio Grande and South Texas. Going to be pretty dry out there. And then going into Thursday, kind of continuing with that pattern, right? We're seeing more snow to the north, the Clipper system track in southern Canada, and then we continue to really see that as we go into Friday the 17th. So an overall dry week, and that means less snow. We could have some snow up here in the Rockies, parts of the Great Lakes, and interior Northeast, but other than that, really not seeing much here across the lower 48. You got to look to our neighbors to the north to see some snow, and they could be putting down a decent snowpack across southern Canada from central Saskatchewan, central Manitoba, and into Ontario, parts of western Quebec. A decent but narrow swath of 6 to 10 inches worth of snow with those clippers as they kind of move from west to east across the Canadian provinces through much of next week, between tomorrow, Monday, January 17th, and Friday, January 7th. Between Monday, January 13th, and Friday, January 17th is what we're keeping an eye on for that. My bad. So looking here at temperature anomalies, going between Friday, January 17th and the 24th, we're going to be seeing some colder air that'll be digging down here across the lower 48 as we go from Canada into the southern portions of the United States even as well, seeing some cold air. And let's look at this pattern, kind of digest this a little bit better. You can see we have a ridge across the west, especially across western Canada up to Alaska. That's going to force colder air in our storm track much further south. Here's our subtropical jet. We're going to see a low pressure system develop off of that branch of the jet stream and move up through the Ohio Valley and in toward the I-95 corridor. And then you have that polar jet to the north bringing in that colder air. And where those kind of phase together, where they come together, the polar jet and the subtropical jet, that's where the energy comes together. And we could get a bigger snowstorm out of this. And the Climate Prediction Center agrees that between the 18th and the 20th time frame, there's a slight risk for heavy snow in those very areas where that subtropical jet is active, from portions here even as far west as Colorado, New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas, but also further east into the Midwest, especially the lower Midwest here, like Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, and then the Ohio Valley, Great Lakes, and up into the Northeast, away from the coast, so likely northwest of the I-95 corridor. Now, with the warmer air we still have across the Gulf Coast, it's going to be warm enough for rain, and we have a slight to moderate risk for heavy rain and heavy precipitation overall here, and this could bring some flash flooding at times, especially if we have repeated rounds of heavy rain. And you can see a couple of models here, the European model for Saturday the 18th, showing that system here moving up across the Ohio Valley. And it's going to be a quick zipping system. And look at the low right off the Maryland and Delaware coast, right off the coast of Jersey there on Sunday. That'll bring snowfall from the mid-Atlantic down here toward Tennessee. And then that kind of zips across the Northeast, doesn't give us much for Monday. The European model doesn't give us a big snowstorm, but definitely a few inches there across parts of the Northeast and back into the mid-Atlantic and eastern Ohio Valley. Not much for the lower Midwest. Look at that in comparison to the American GFS model on Saturday, January 18th. Low pressure system 100 miles or more further west than the Euro, showing this all the way back in towards southern Illinois or near Paducah, Kentucky, and then you have a narrow swath of some snowfall on the northern side. This produces a bigger snowstorm for places like Pennsylvania, New York State, West Virginia, and those areas all the way down again into Tennessee on Sunday, and then kind of zips that further east on Monday, and then all that cold air comes down on the backside. The GFS model is a little bit more bullish, very similar areas, right, as the Euro and the GFS kind of honing in on the Northeast, the Mid-Atlantic, and the Ohio Valley for this system, but the GFS much more bullish on the totals here for snow, something that will need to be refined over the next couple of days. Let's look at our temperatures behind that system, because while it's not going to be real Arctic air, we're still going to see colder temperatures as we go into the lower 48 between the 24th and 31st, and as we finish off the month of January. And here's the new storm track as we go into the last week of the month. We're going to kind of shift everything a little bit further west here. We're going to have a little bit of a ridge of high pressure develop across the southeast and up the east coast, and that's going to produce milder air, so that'll be on the warm side of the system. And then on the cold side, we could be seeing some ice and or snow, and that snow could definitely pile up from the Midwest into the Great Lakes and southeastern Canada because you have low pressures developing here near the Texas Panhandle, moving up through areas like Chicago, Indianapolis, and toward Detroit and Toronto. Underneath of that ice storm track, also some snow, and then you have the polar air from the north from the polar jet stream, where those phase together again right over the Midwest, the Great Lakes, and southeastern Canada. That's where we can have a mature storm system. And yes, a bigger snowstorm would be in play for places like Green Bay, Chicago, Detroit, the Twin Cities, Des Moines, Kansas City, something to keep an eye on. Even Indianapolis could see that as well as we go into that last week or so of January. And my thought process is that likely will continue even beyond this period into early February. So if you're watching me from the Midwest, the Great Lakes, Southeast Canada, you haven't seen much snow this year, well, we still have plenty of gas in the tank for the winter, and definitely is going to finish off strong, I think, with cold and snow as we go even into early February. So subscribe to the channel for the latest weather information. Check back often for updates as you follow along during my daily weather forecasts on this channel. Make sure to like the video by giving it a thumbs up down below. I definitely appreciate everybody who does that. Also, share the video on social media. Also appreciate that. Leave any comments, questions, and concerns below. I'll get to those after the video, and I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their Sunday out there.